created by myself and Daniel Valdez. We actually had the title a long time, maybe a year and a half before we had anything on paper, anything that even remotely looked like the production that we were going to do. Our idea was really pretty basic. What we wanted to do was we wanted to tell the story of the black influence on Chicano culture. We dug deeper into what the blues was about, and the idea that the blues comes from a reaction to political oppression, the pain of not being able to provide for your family, some of the dysfunction that comes out of poverty. All of those things were ways that the blues helped people cope with this. The blues was something a lot different than that. It was a lot deeper and more profound. It really was included African tenants that maintain themselves, the call and response, that keep coming forward, the wailing, all those kind of things that that we just take for granted in that style of music are definitely have African influences, and so it goes much deeper. So for us it was a a culturally rooted type of music that had a lot of connections with the Chicano, the Mexican American experience. You know, clearly we understand oppression, we understand the poverty, we understand the frustration of trying to survive in a country that doesn't really want you but only wants your labor. It's kind of interesting how that's moved outside the African culture, the African American culture, that those pieces kind of get lost, that it's really at the core of it. It's a cry for it's a cry and an expression of those things that are very deep. It's a human condition, it's a human spirit. That was the basic idea. We knew that Chicanos and blacks in a lot of cities around the country lived right alongside of each other. You know, we shared a lot of the same barrios and a lot of common experiences, and there was a cross-pollination between those two communities, and Chicanos were very much influenced by black music. We also wanted to show how spiritually, politically, in terms of the soul piece of it, that we were connected to it. We were listening to an album by Los Super Seven. This has Dave Hidalgo, Lyle Lovett, it has all these guys in it, right? And what we were struck by was the eclectic element of the piece, that it included so many influences in there. We heard electric mariachi, and just straight up, you know, oldies kind of stuff. So we heard a bunch of different things that just was like, yeah, that's what we wanted. We want it to be as eclectic and as broad as it can. But it really is, it's a tribute in some ways to a lot of musicians in our community that didn't get attention. It's introducing a lot of very famous musicians, singers in our community to an audience that doesn't know where this music comes from. A lot of the stories about the relationships, I had already had them sketched out, but we had band members like Manuel Roybal and Tony Silva who talked about all of these things, and Frank Fresquez talked about all these relationships that they had in their bands, and this guy could do this and this guy could do that, and told us pretty amazing stories about what it was like to be a musician and gig in those time periods. And then kind of, you know, there's an emptiness that never really makes its way to a broader audience, right? There's nothing like live music. You know, and Chicanos sing the blues in any iteration that it ever takes place, it will always be live. And that's the principle of Su Teatro. The music here that is played for performance is live, and it's really a tribute to, one, it's supporting musicians, but it's also really supporting the live experience. So you're not going to have the karaoke, we play the CD and then people sing before it. It really adds a different nuance, and I think that it really adds tremendous flavor to what it is we're doing. We learn things a lot about the music. I wrote 2 pieces for the show. One of them is my poor attempt at gospel music. I tried to insult 2 really important, you know, cultural traditions. You know, one is going after gospel music, where we wrote this I wrote this political piece on Arizona's 1070 law, the SB 1070 law, which is the Papers, Please law. I wrote this piece and set it to more of a gospel tone. And we had a real hard time coming to that point where it didn't, you know, originally it sounded very country and western, which meant it wasn't going to make it into the show. And as we kind of worked our way through it and found the deeper level of it, that we were able to kind of make it. Now I think it comes off that way. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it sells a lot better that way. And the other piece was my idea to do more of an electric mariachi, or the son, taking the son, a folk song, and writing the theme, Chicanos Sing the Blues, which is, you know, it takes a basic rhythm of a Mexican son and adds a little electric guitar into it, and adds English lyrics and more, you know, slang type of lyrics into it to try to explain the overall feeling that we're trying to have in the show. And that took us a while. It took us a while to get the right feel for that. So it was a little bit harder to evolve the original work than it was to just kind of do some of the work that was already established, because we kind of got into going and tweak it. But tweak it we did. We really did have this idea that we were going to go in and one is go to the original source rather than to find a hybrid that we heard from someplace. You know, later on we went really back as far as we could to find the original musicians.